We are surrounded by other states that are booming more than us. I mean, you look at Texas, you look at Florida, it's maybe not right next to us, but it's a coastal state just like we are. Everyone else is somehow doing better than us. So I think, leaning to what are they doing differently, but also, we have grown more than we have maintained. And I think it's the lack of maintenance that is holding us back in Louisiana. We have to prioritize both growth and maintenance at the same time because otherwise we're growing systems that are doomed to fail from the beginning.
We are Louisiana Indivisible. From New Orleans to North Louisiana, from Baton Rouge to the Bayou, from Shreveport to St. Bernard Parish, from Lake Charles to Lafayette to Leesville. Together, we can defend our democracy. We Are Louisiana Indivisible is highlighting people, politicians, and organizations across the state and region that understand there are no kings but king cakes in Louisiana, and that y'all will always mean all. Listen, share with your friends and neighbors, and help us work for a better tomorrow in Louisiana and beyond. Welcome back to We Are Louisiana Indivisible. I'm your host, Joel Sharpton, and I am excited to have our first state congressional candidate today. We've been focusing a lot on the federal races, but there is a tremendous amount of work done for the good of the people, and goodness knows for our ill as well at the state level. Today we're speaking with Angela Roberts, a candidate for District 69's congressional seat at the state level. Angela, thanks for spending some time with us today.
Thank you for inviting.
I am so excited to talk to you. I haven't meant to downplay the state races so far. We think about the urgency at the federal level because there are such large scale shenanigans going on at the federal level.
Right.
But one of the things that I think, especially as we lead up to this No Kings 3 rally coming at the end of March, I think the Landry administration, in particular in Louisiana, has done a lot to imitate the Trump administration at the federal level. And these amendments that are coming up in May are a perfect example of that. He's trying to end around the state legislature so much by adding these constitutional amendments and pushing things through that way. So I want to get to know you a little bit, talk about your race specifically. Let's start with this. Who is Angela Roberts, and why did you get into this race? Why'd you stick your neck out?
Right. So I am a mom of 3 kids. I have one child who has autism. I've been a legal professional for 10 years. I'm also a CASA, that is a court-appointed special advocate, and that is volunteer work with the Child Advocacy Center. I'm from Catahoula Parish, so I'm a Louisiana native. It's a very rural area. I was raised that if you have a complaint, you should also have a solution. So, I mean, I see a lot of complaints. I have a lot of complaints. I want to be the solution. And I also think that our government should work the way that we do. I think our government should be transparent and also accountable because you can't have a transparency without having accountability. So I just thought that it would be me. If not me, then who?
Boy, that is so true. Like, so often we see people and we hear people sitting on the sidelines and Monday morning quarterbacking, oh, things ought to be better, but nobody ever wants to volunteer and actually do anything about it. So first and
Right.
foremost, thank you for taking your time and your energy and your money to make this run to begin with. Now, we've talked a lot about the spring races so far with our other candidates. Your timing is a little bit different. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on right away.
Right.
Early voting starts for you as we're releasing this, I think, basically this weekend, right?
Right. So this is a special election because Paula Davis actually resigned from this position. So this is a special election that will take place on March 14th. So early voting actually starts this Saturday on the 28th. Friday is my birthday. So it'll be the day after my birthday, February 28th is when early voting starts, and it will run until March 7th.
And the full election date is when?
March 14th.
March 14th. That's right. That's right. Okay. So Angela, what are the biggest issues facing your district in particular? I mean, I know a lot of Louisiana faces the same things, and
Right.
your website highlights it: infrastructure issues, healthcare costs, etc. But what particularly is bothering the constituents that you are shaking hands with and speaking to on a daily basis right now?
I mean, like you said, it's on the website. It's affordability and instability has really hit all of us, even here in the district. You can't. These are nonpartisan issues, so you can't get around them by saying, "Oh, it's this party or it's that party." Everyone is having these issues. It's all of Louisiana. It's in District 69. That's what I'm running on is infrastructure, insurance, childhood education and early intervention. Like I told you, I have a child who has autism, so that's very close and personal to me. They've all got the same complaints: affordability and instability.
Educational expenses continues to be one of the biggest issues that I see that actually does have a pretty stiff party divide, seemingly, in Louisiana, in that Republicans overwhelmingly are for school choice, school vouchers, and various other forms that I've found so far drastically take away from the public school system. As a person who's got 4 kids right now in the public school system, I see the cuts that have already been made here locally. And we've got a great district. The kids are still performing. The teachers are doing their best. Their aides are working hard, but they are understaffed and underfunded. So what can we do about that? And how do we better frame that messaging, Angela, so that we can reach people that may not agree with you and I on every position that we have politically, but do want our public schools funded and our kids educated?
Right. Like I said, I think that's one of those things that we're not so different, is that we all want our children to have a quality education. We should all want each other's children to have a quality education, but, I guess that's kind of a debate down the line somewhere. But, early education and intervention is the cornerstone upon which all of our children succeed. And we could take that all the way up. It doesn't end at early intervention and early education. We could take that all the way up to our high school students who need workforce readiness. I mean, education is just a pillar of our entire community. It doesn't just end at high school. It doesn't just end at college. These are our workforce for our future economy. I mean, it's a long-term return on investment.
100%. As somebody, I'm in my mid 40s now. My oldest is headed to LSU in the fall, actually. I am a lifelong Louisiana Tech Bulldog, so I'm a little saddened by that, Angela, if I'm being honest, but
Yeah.
I'm excited for the opportunities that are ahead of him. But I do think I want this state to be a place where he and his siblings feel comfortable and excited about building a young life, raising their family, and, to be very frank and direct and selfish, helping fund my own retirement, right? I need a thriving
Right.
community around me if I want someplace to grow old and gray in. So how do we start building a Louisiana that entices your kids, my kids, this next generation to hang around?
We are surrounded by other states that are booming more than us. I mean, you look at Texas, you look at Florida, it's maybe not right next to us, but it's a coastal state just like we are. Everyone else is somehow doing better than us. So I think, leaning to what are they doing differently, but also, we have grown more than we have maintained. And I think it's the lack of maintenance that is holding us back in Louisiana. We have to prioritize both growth and maintenance at the same time, because otherwise we're growing systems that are doomed to fail from the beginning. So I think just really hammering on our infrastructure and maintaining our infrastructure is going to be the answer to that question long term.
Let's talk a little bit about the affordability crisis going on right now. And obviously, we're feeling that at the grocery store, we're feeling it at the gas pump, although less so, I'll say, at the gas pump in Louisiana than most states, since we are such a heavily gas producing
Depends
state.
on which one you go
Um,
to.
yeah, that's true, I suppose. But in particular, I know personally, I've felt it in my healthcare costs. Insurance rates. I'm a independent worker. I work for myself. I have a small business, sole proprietorship, and my ACA rates have skyrocketed in a way that is untenable, honestly, for my small family. I also know that I'm not alone. This is happening to Louisiana families across the state, families across the country, honestly. Obviously, the big answers to that lie at the federal level. But what can we do, if anything, do you see at the state level that we can begin to sort of patch some of those holes, maybe save some of those hospitals that are facing closure over the next few years?
So insurance ties directly back into our infrastructure. I mean, we have them as two pillars of the campaign, but honestly, that you could make them one. All of these issues marry back together. So I'm going to use home insurance for an example. Is that if we are mitigating the risk, then we have a more competitive insurance environment in Louisiana again. For example, we have so much flood risk. It's hard to write, knowing that a home is going to flood soon. So if we're maintaining that infrastructure, like we were just talking about, then we are lessening the risk of flood, and weather is going to happen, but there are weather hardening stances and things we can do so that we are mitigating that risk so that insurance will want to come back to Louisiana and write more competitive policies and we're not depending on the state market. So that's more what we've got to do is we've got to target the infrastructure, target the risk so that we can improve our insurance.
I want to stick with infrastructure for a second because
Yeah.
we've just had some announcements, not necessarily in your part of the state, but more towards mine about some new AI data centers. We've already got one in the northeastern part of the state that's being built right now for Meta, but Amazon has just made a big commitment,
Mhm.
and we're going to get 3 in the Shreveport area apparently over the next few years. What is your opinion on these data centers? I obviously am a tech forward guy. I live my life and do all of my business on the internet. I'm hosting this podcast to try to amplify voices like yours across this state. So I'm not against data centers existing, first and foremost, and I'm not even against the idea of America leading in the AI field. I think it's an inevitability at some point, and we do need to have a big stake in it as that moves forward. We'll be left behind if we don't. However, all of these deals feel like they've been made sort of in the dark to me. We hear about them after the fact. There's a final meeting and nobody knows about it. It's almost like a parody. I don't know if you know the movie or the book, but there's this great sci-fi book and a film called Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Yeah, this group of aliens shows up and they say they've scheduled the Earth for destruction because there's an intergalactic, I don't know, transporter being built there or something. And the Earthlings are all screaming. They're like, there's no use screaming now. The notice has been posted for 100 years in the intergalactic mainframe.
Yeah.
We didn't know about it where it was posted. Yeah, sure, there was notice, but over and over again across Louisiana, this has happened. Across the country, this is happening, where it seems like local leaders are making these deals and trying to force them through without the public being notified. How do you feel about this? Have you looked at it at all? What can our state reps in particular do to better protect our individual citizens? Again, I'm not for Luddite, right? I don't want to stop progress, but I want to make sure that Louisiana itself, the land is protected, and that Louisianans are protected and are benefiting from these advancements.
Right. So, I mean, that ties it back into what I was saying. You cannot have because everybody runs on transparency. You cannot have true transparency if you don't also have accountability. And so, if we're lacking accountability, we're lacking that transparency. As far as the data centers, I'm like you. I am not, against tech. I am a very pro tech. I like to deem myself as tech savvy, although the older I get, I learn that maybe I'm not quite as tech savvy anymore. I just think, you could say this across the board, and I say it about education all the time, particularly here in District 69, where we're talking about St. George and things like that. I think that whatever decisions we make cannot be made in haste. We have to thoroughly is the key word there, thoroughly assess the impacts, and the impacts have to be more positive than negative. And like I said last night at the Young Democrats event, is that it's not enough for me for it to be a 51-49 positive to negative. I mean, we have to see some true positive impact that's going to outweigh the risk and the cons, because let's be honest, you don't make decisions that don't have risk and that don't have cons, but it's got to truly outweigh those risk and cons for me to be for it. So that's my stance on that, is that whatever we do has to be thoroughly assessed for impact.
I'm 100% with you, and again, it is just about the transparency. We can have the conversation. We can have any conversation. Just don't make
I mean, I
a deal
find that
in
here
the
lately they're
back room.
transparently telling us what they're going to do that's to our harm. So, I mean, like I said, you have to have accountability with it or it doesn't matter.
That
Yeah.
is absolutely true. All right, let's talk about that accountability a little bit specifically. Let's talk about the amendments. We've got 5 more amendments on the back. Actually, I think it's 6, right, in May. But these amendments are effectively mirrors of what Landry did last year. And thankfully, the messaging got out that these were legalese dressed, wolves in sheep's clothing, so to speak, and they all got defeated last year. I have a good feeling they're going to get defeated this year. I'm excited, honestly, because it's the same day as most of those federal primary races, and
Mhm.
I think the turnout's gonna be pretty good because of it. But talk a little bit about how once you get into this District 69 seat, how do you start forming a coalition to take back a little bit of the legislative power in Baton Rouge and make sure that Landry or any future administration is reined in as far as what they're able to do as the chief executive?
Not a lot of people like this answer. There's always going to be people that we continue to have massive disagreements with, but I think that the popularity rate has gone down quite a bit, especially, I mean, you can't even say in the last year, in the last 3 months, because we're not even to March, actually. We just January, February's not even done. So 2 months. In the last 2 months alone, we have had just a lot less popularity for those that we have in office here lately. And so the part that people don't like is when I say, I'm bitter too. A lot of us are bitter right now at what people have voted for, but we have to stop spoon feeding them their own medicine. And the people who are coming to some realizations, we have to accept them in and make a unity. Otherwise, we're not going to continue to progress. Yeah, we've got a great coalition between us as a party. We've got to open our door to those people who were on the fence or who have realized things aren't going the way that they had hoped, because that's the only way we can move forward. We have to work across the aisle. We say that all the time, but we have to actually accountably do that. We have to put it in practice every single day, even when we don't want to, even when we're mad. We have to learn, unfortunately, to bite our tongues. Because I am guilty that I would have been the first person to yank my teeth before I ever bite my tongue. But we're gonna have to. That's the only way we can move forward. Is we've got to stop spoon feeding them their own medicine and work together to move forward.
I think one of the reasons why we were so successful at defeating those amendments last spring was because of, I use my mother as an example. My mom was a lifelong educator and a public school employee, and she's a fairly conservative woman. I mean, even today, she's religiously conservative, politically conservative, definitely fiscally conservative. However, she knew those amendments were nonsense, and she was loud about it and told her friends so. I saw a lot of especially conservative school teachers publicly saying, "Hey, this thing they're saying it's for our benefit. It is not for our benefit. We gotta get it." And once you look at one and you see behind the subterfuge of the language, you realize they're trying to sell you a bunch of bull on all of them. I feel the same way right now for farmers. Our Louisiana farmers are currently being hit by a lot of the things that the Landry administration and the Trump administration are doing. And I think we've got the opportunity to reach out and go, hey, look, we've got some policies that would benefit you over there. We don't agree on everything. Great. But let's work on the things that we can agree with. Absolutely. I'm with you, Angela.
That ties back into the transparency. I mean, I have found, because I'm a paralegal also, I have found that a lot of people don't know, you have the right to represent yourself. Well, it's kind of hard to represent yourself if you don't know the legalese, if you don't know the legal jargon. You can't go in front of the judge and like you won't know what these things mean. So we have the system that I feel has intentionally been set up such that we don't understand the jargon. And then we put this same jargon into voting for everyday people, we would call them lay people. You can't do that. You have to lead with transparency, and I don't see why we shouldn't make the questions on the ballot more simple for lay people. We're not all lawyers.
Angela, one of the things that I have loved to watch over the last couple of weeks and months as I've started doing these interviews with candidates is the fact that there are a lot of normal people that have decided to stand up and say, hey, I want to say in my government, and I think I could better represent my neighbor because I
It is the
see
people's
currently they are
office.
being misrepresented. Boy, it's the people's house. I think it is so important that people know that, and that we remind people of that. Talk to me a little bit and talk to our audience a little bit about the difficulty of running a campaign as a quote unquote normal person. You got a day job, you got a young family. You didn't start this thing, I don't think, with any sort of staff or anything. Talk
Right.
a little bit about that difficulty and point people in the right direction. If they've liked what you said so far, how can they go and help you with this, Angela?
Right. So I'll tell you the first hurdles, and luckily I had all the right people around me. So you have to, for example, to start a campaign account because campaigns take money, a lot of money. So to start a campaign account, you don't just go to the bank and say, "Hey, I want to open another bank account," like you would have done your personal account. You have to have these papers that prove that you're really running. So you have to get an EIN. Okay, you could do it on the internet. Maybe it's not that hard, but that's not enough. You also have to qualify. Well, if you want to start raising money before you qualify, especially in a special election where you only have, so much time to get your feet on the ground and start running, well, then you also need to get an LLC. And an LLC, you have to apply to the Secretary of State. And if you want to do so quickly because you're running for special election, you've got to expedite it. There's a cost to that. The EIN, there's no cost to that. But then you take these things and you open up your bank account. There's all this paperwork. The people that work at the bank cannot actually give you any advice in what you're doing there. So you've got to find somebody that you can talk to. You have to be able to search the internet. We're not all super tech savvy, even if we're able to run for office and we're smart and capable. Not everyone is tech savvy still, nonetheless. So those are just some of the first hurdles. Then you have the ethics board. You have to, because if you're running for campaign and you're collecting money, you have to do what you're supposed to with the money. So you have to file with ethics. There's a form, a fee, more forms, and they have to be filed by a certain time or you're going to get these huge fines. You might want to get an accountant to help you. Luckily, my brother is an accountant. And some of these forms, if you're comfortable, you might could figure them out yourself. But it's just a long laundry list of things you have to do that would massively overwhelm probably most common day people. And like you said, I didn't start this with the staff. I've been very lucky to have excellent volunteers that have helped me along the way, that they have a lot of experience in having participated in elections and campaigns before. So I got really lucky with a great team, got really lucky with great other volunteers who were willing to knock on doors and make phone calls and write postcards and all those things. But then even that comes with an aspect of organizing people. And luckily my team has that experience to organize those people because, you don't even know what you don't know when you do this. I mean, I know I've been going, there's a large fee for qualifying. I know Lauren Jewett, she just turned in twice the amount of petition signatures that she needed. So you can do petition signatures. But someone told me, hey, don't do petitions to qualify because people can, challenge those signatures. And that's likely why Lauren did so many to avoid that issue. But, it's just challenges upon challenges.
It is so clearly rigged for
Not
a
set up for
very
the people, not
specific
set up for
kind of
people who,
person.
yeah, if you don't
Yeah.
have the money, it's
Yeah.
not set
The
up for you. If you
farmer,
don't have the know-how, not set up for you.
that's
Don't
it,
have
man.
people around you that have done it before, not set up for you.
Yes, if you look at who is holding so many of the seats right now, they are former staffers for retired representatives, right? They are the next man up, so to speak, that was just in line. And that's a way to run a government. I don't think it's the way that this one's supposed to be run, and I don't think it gives us the best outcomes. I think the track record over the last 20, 30 years in Louisiana shows that. Angela, I'm excited for your race. I think you mentioned your website in there somewhere, but tell us again, how can people get involved, volunteer, or donate a little bit to help you close this thing out?
Yeah, so the website is AngelaRobertsForLA.com. That is Angela Roberts, AngelaRoberts. Then it's FORLA.com, AngelaRobertsForLA.com. And then you can go to that website. You can sign up to volunteer. You can donate. There's multiple other things we can do in the course of volunteering. You could just spread the word. You get the word out. You can go to social media. It's on the website as well. Anything that you do in any of those capacities is very helpful. If you can't volunteer the manpower or the money, you can absolutely spread the word. We're always on our phones. And that word of mouth does so much more than people think it does.
One of the things that I wanted to do so badly while setting up this show and creating this content feed is to create a little bit of that platform so that we build a bench of voices. And Angela, no matter how this race turns out, you're a great voice for Louisiana, and I'm excited about your future here. I'm excited to make this state better for the folks that actually live in it.
Well, thank you for saying that. And no matter how this race goes, I will be running for this same seat in 2027, win or lose, because it is a special election. It won't be long.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, Angela. Everybody go check out the website, make your donation if you can, volunteer if you can't. And remember, if you're in District 69, the election starts this weekend with early voting starting on February 28th and the final election itself on March 14th. Thank you again for joining us, Angela, on We Are Louisiana Indivisible.
Thank you for having me.